Coordinate plane. So let's first take a look at some of the vocabulary. What exactly is a coordinate plane? So a coordinate plane is a grid formed by a horizontal number line and a vertical number line, okay? Think of a plane, not the kind you fly, but this kind of plane is a flat surface that goes on forever in all directions, okay? And coordinates, think about coordinates that you know of. For example, longitude and latitude, or if you've ever played Battleship, coordinates are two numbers or maybe a number and a letter that tell you where something is located, okay? So a coordinate plane is a plane, something that goes on forever, a flat surface that goes on forever, where it has coordinates, so you can specifically say where things are. Just like longitude and latitude tell you where you are in the world, okay? So here's an example one over here on the right. And those two axes, those two number lines, the horizontal one is called the x-axis, and the vertical one is called the y-axis. There's no easy way to remember that. The only one I've ever heard is some people say the y, it stretches down, so you can think of it going vertically down. But you just have to memorize which is which. Now before we move on, I'll talk about the coordinate plane for a minute as far as how you draw it in your notes. On my notes, I have a nice grid on there, but I would not recommend drawing that. Actually, please do not draw the grid on your paper. If you have graph paper, great, but if you don't, just draw the x and y coordinate, or x and y axes, okay, like this, and then add little tick marks as you need them, okay? And you honestly don't even need to number the tick marks because that's just going to jumble up your drawing and make it really hard to read. The main thing, try to space them out equally, okay? If you're not a super organized person or very good at drawing things, I would recommend getting graph paper. I will have some paper that has these coordinate planes on them, but graph paper is really helpful in this unit. All right, so those two axes, the x and the y axis, divide that plane into four different regions, if you will, but we call these quadrants. Makes sense because the prefix quad means four. So there's four quadrants. The first one is right here, and they use Roman numerals for some reason, I call them. I think it's so you don't get them mixed up with numbers or the coordinates. But that's the first quadrant. The first quadrant, it makes sense that that's the first quadrant because this is where all the positive numbers are, okay? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 along here, and then also positive numbers going up this direction. So quadrant 1 is the one you're used to if you've ever just seen a graph from when you were younger, right? If you made a line graph or a bar graph, you would use just this quadrant, right? You would draw a line down to 0, and then out of 0, you come out here, okay? So quadrant 1 is the one you're most used to, where both the coordinates are positive. The x coordinate and the y coordinate are positive. Then it goes counterclockwise for whatever reason. I'm not totally sure why. If you want to Google why, that might be interesting. But that's quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, and then quadrant 4 is down here below quadrant 1. So again, something you just want to memorize which quadrant is which. Then naming things, so Battleship, you know, you might say C4, okay? Well, here you use two numbers. You don't use a letter and a number, and they're called an ordered pair, which makes sense. Pair means two, right? So two numbers, and ordered means they're in a certain order, which would be important, right? 1, 2 should be different than 2, 1. So an ordered pair, and the order is fairly logical, it's alphabetical. So the x coordinate comes first and the y coordinate comes second, okay? And it gives you the location of the point. So for example, our point P here, right? You use the little parentheses for the point, and it's at -7, 4. So that means our x coordinate is -7. So along the x-axis here, I go out to -7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's where -7 is. And then the y coordinate is 4. So that means they went up 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is 4. So -7, 4, where those two meet, is where that point is. Okay. Let's practice another one. Let's say we had a point at 3, 8. That means I would go out 3 for the x, because the x is 3. And then up 8. So there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for the y. So we got 3, 8 for the y. And then you find where the two of them meet. that would be the 0.38 right there. Okay. Let's try one more. How about -5, -2? So you go out to -5. So remember along the x-axis, the x-point is -5. The negatives are to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here's -5. -2 I'd go down to. So there's -2. And where they meet is right there. So that's that point. Okay. There's one point that has a special name, and it's the one in the middle. It's 0, 0 right here. And they often represent it by that O. And the O indicates the origin. So that's where the two x's intersect. It's the point 0, 0. It makes sense if you think about it, because origin originates. It's where they all start. It's coming from the middle and then going out positive this direction, negative this direction, positive that direction, negative that direction. So the middle point is the origin. So we talked about this a little bit on the other slide. Each quadrant has different types of points in it. So the first quadrant, like we said, are both positive. Both the x-axis along this part is positive, as well as the y-axis going up is positive. So any points that are positive, positive, for example, 3, 2, right? They're both positive. 3, 2 is right there. Or if I did 8, 1, right? I'd go out to 8, and that 1 would be right there. Okay, so any numbers that are positive, positive are in that first quadrant. In the second quadrant, the x values are negative. They're going this way. So the x values are negative, but the y values are still positive. So anytime I have a number that is coordinate that's negative, positive, it's going to be in the second quadrant. So this one would be right there. This one, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 3. -9, 3 would be right there. In the third quadrant, we still have all of the x values are negative, but now also the y values are negative. So anytime you have a negative, negative, so -7, -7, for example, that would be in this third quadrant. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. -7 would be right there. Or maybe you had -1, -3, which would be right there. Okay, so negatives are in the third quadrant. Fourth quadrant, our x values are back to being positive, but our y values are still down here, so our y values are still negative. So anytime you have a positive, negative, it would be in the fourth quadrant. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -2 would be right there. 5, -2. All right, so let's have you practice this on your own. Well, first of all, before we practice it, we'll make sure we get all our names for these. So we got the first number in ordered pair. You could call it lots of different things. You could call it the x value or the x coordinate. Those are the two most common ones you hear it called, the x value or the x coordinate. So that would make the second one either the y value or the y coordinate. So taking these ordered pairs, go ahead and write them on your page, hit pause. You can use the little quadrant that the quadrants you had on the last page in your coordinate plane to figure out which one they would go in. Some of these won't be in a quadrant, they might be between two. So if they are, describe where they are, what axis are they on, which ones are they in between. And then go ahead and write the answers down and then hit play to check your work, okay? All right, starting with the first one, they're both positive, 9, 4, so this would be in the first quadrant. Next one, 3, positive 3, but -2. That would take us down into the fourth quadrant. -1, -8 is the third quadrant. 0, 5, so that means it doesn't go along the x-axis at all. It only goes up the y-axis. So that means this is on the y-axis, and it's between the first and second quadrants. -7, 2 would be in the second quadrant. 0, 0 is the origin, so it's in between all of them. -2, -2 is in the third quadrant. -3, 1 is in the second quadrant. 0, -3, again, it's not going out along the x-axis at all. It's only on the y-axis. But this time it's down in between 3 and 4. In between quadrants 3 and 4. And then 0, 9 again is on the y-axis, just like the one above, it's between 1 and 2. We don't have one on here that's on the x-axis. If it was on the x-axis, the second number would be a 0. So for example, -2, 0, that would be on the x-axis. All right, so make sure you feel comfortable identifying what quadrant ordered pairs are in. All right, so I want you to go ahead and pause it, read all these directions, sketch this all out, and when you're done, hit play to see how you did. All right, so let's see how you did. So your instructions are plot these points. So you got 0, 7, you got 5, 7, you got 5, -3, you got 0, -3, and then back to 0, 7. It says connect them in order, so that's why it goes back to 0, 7 again. So if I connect them in order, I notice I've made a rectangle. So there's your rectangle. And it says, what shape is this? Rectangle. Then it asks for the area. So from here to here, 0 to 5 is 5 units. And then this gets a little more complicated. So this is up at 7. So from here to here is 7. And then from here to here is 3. So that makes this whole side 10. So remember, to find the area, the inside, you multiply the base times the height. So that would give me 50 square units for my area. All right, same thing. Go ahead and pause it, work it out, and then hit play to see if you're correct. All right, so we got -8, -3. We got -6, 4. We got 0, 4. We got 2, -3, and then back to -8, -3. So we draw our shape. And what shape is this? This is a trapezoid. Because the top and the bottom are parallel to each other, but the other sides are not, so that's a trapezoid. And it wants to know its area. So the formula for the area of a trapezoid, if you don't remember it, you need each of the two bases. So this top base is 6. And this one goes from here to here is 8, plus 2 more, so the bottom base is 10. So you average those two bases, so 6 plus 10 divided by 2, so the average of the bases is 8. And you multiply the average of the bases times the height. So here's our height. Remember, height is straight up and down, making a right angle out of it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is our height. So now I'm going to multiply that average of the base times the height, and I get 56 square units.